Welcome back, everybody. This is Darreck Kirby back with another Mavericks post-game show here. The Dallas Mavericks outlasted the Los Angeles Lakers last night in LA in what is thankfully the last, at least if you're stateside, I suppose, the last really, really late start of the year. If you're a fan over in Europe, you probably like the later start times because it means it's a more reasonable hour in the morning for you. But stateside, this is the last late one for us. That's a good thing. Now, the Mavericks in this game, it's a tale of two halves, but I'm not as upset about having to hang on for the win at the end because a lot in this game, it was predicated on prior context. What I mean by that, the Lakers coming off of an embarrassing, I don't even know if that's a strong enough word, you might just say humiliating defeat to the New Orleans Pelicans on national television, we're bound to try and respond. That response was not straight out of the gate. They came out flat, and Dallas walked into a big halftime lead, 71-56 at the half for Dallas. So you're looking at that and you're saying, yeah, Dallas is exposing LA, who has been in a complete downward spiral. They're exposing them as total and complete frauds. Unfortunately, the third quarter happened, and Dallas, they had a tough 3-game streak there. They had to go right after the All-Star break to Utah, where they lost a disappointing game close. Could have won that. Then had to play Golden State, the second best team in the West. And then the Lakers, who, they're frauds, but winning in LA, especially in the context of these two franchises, is never easy. They got 2 out of 3, so you'll take that, even if you lost the one that you might needed most because you're chasing the Jazz currently. So the third quarter happens. Dallas, they don't implode. It's not like they were playing terrible. They just weren't finishing. Shooters were missing open shots. Luka was 0 of 4 in the quarter. Brunson, I think, was 1 of 4. And they got outscored 31-14. 31, that's not a great defensive quarter by any means for a team that hangs their hat on defense. But good grief, 14 points in the third quarter after 71 at the half is bad. Thankfully, Dallas was able to respond. They were able to get their feet back under them. And even though they trailed then going into the fourth quarter, they're able to pull away and do just enough to hang on to win. Now, one moment I loved particularly was Luka Doncic. He had a rough game. He had more turnovers than assists. That's the second time in a row that's happened. The last 2 games, Luka has 15 turnovers against, I think, just 7 assists now. That's an aberration for him to do that back-to-back games. But I like that even though he had a not great shooting night, 0 of 5 from 3, missed a few free throws, he came through in the clutch. When he entered the game that final time, Dallas was trailing by, I want to say, 3 points. And in the crunch time, dueling with LeBron James, he made plays. In the fourth quarter, Russell Westbrook tried to ISO on him a couple times back-to-back. Luka not only won that battle each time, he got 2 blocks. Now, Russell Westbrook, he might be cooked at this point. He was still pretty serviceable last year with Washington, but he's clearly a shell of himself right now in LA. And, that's to the Lakers' detriment. Can't say I feel bad for them there. I do like Russ, though, so I feel a little bad for him. But even still, Luka making big plays defensively. Dallas does just enough to get a 109-104 victory. Like I said, they've won 2 out of 3 in a tough stretch, and they are still 2 games back against the Jazz because obviously you lose the head-to-head. That's going to make it tough. So with 20 games to play, Dallas is 2 games back of the 4 seed. There is still a shot that they could get that, but there's also a pretty decent shot they could fall to 6. Now, in these different scenarios of who they could match up with, you're basically looking at the Jazz or the Grizzlies. And I agree with Kirk Henderson of Mavs Moneyball. I think the Grizzlies is the better matchup for you. Now, that's not to say that I don't expect Ja Morant to be, or that's not to say that I expect Dallas to contain Ja Morant. because I think he is a sensational athlete. He is peak Russell Westbrook in terms of athleticism, mixed with better discipline and a better shot. That's impressive. It's also worth saying that, this past month, Luka and him are basically neck and neck for who's going to be Western Conference Player of the Month, and both have equally good resumes, both in terms of personal and team success. But since Luka and Ja Morant have been in the league playing head-to-head, Ja Morant is 1-5 against Luka. They beat Dallas once in there where Luka and KP missed. I don't count that. I'm talking when both guys played. He has beaten Luka once. That's not good. I feel like that should count for something. That should be indicative of something of how these teams match up. And, we can talk about the Jazz game and how Luka didn't get the benefit of a couple of foul calls there in the closing moments, ISOing against Rudy Gobert that he should have. The NBA acknowledged one of those instances where he was fouled and it wasn't called. That's fair. But I don't want to deal with Rudy Gobert if I don't have to. A guy that has that ability, especially in the playoffs where they let you be a little more physical, a guy that has that ability to take your best player and make life that difficult for him in crunch time, I don't want any part of that if I don't have to deal with it. I would rather match up with the Grizzlies and trust that, hey, even if Morant goes nuts, as long as we have everything else around us that we have, our chances are pretty good. Let's get back into the notes on this game, though. This was a rough... I mentioned how bad the third quarter was for the team as a whole. Shooting, this was not a good game for Dallas. I think Reggie Bullock was like 1 of 7. Maxey had a couple misses in there that were painful. I talked about Luka and Brunson in the third quarter specifically. And, it didn't look great. But one guy that was very, very good was Spencer Dinwiddie, who continues to shine. Now, he didn't go for 20 plus like he did the 2 previous games where he went for like 24 and 22 and 24 points in back-to-back games. It wasn't quite that. In 24 minutes, though, he does give you 14 and 9 off the bench. Big playmaking. He did have a couple turnovers, but again, 14 and 9 in 24 minutes. Hit a couple tough threes that are just kind of not heat check, but just kind of willing the ball in. Impressive stuff. Like, he is so vital to this team. And I'll admit, I wanted to be optimistic about his chances to maybe find his footing. I didn't think he was going to be what he has immediately been pretty much coming over in this trade. Meanwhile, Kristaps Porzingis still has not made his debut for Washington. So at this point, you're talking more than a month since he started missing time with the Mavericks for right knee soreness. That speaks volumes. What Dinwiddie brings to you, particularly off the bench, is invaluable. And now even if Brunson does struggle in the playoffs again, as he did last year, you have a guy that can still run the offense for you and can still help contribute and lead that second unit. And that is so crucial what Dallas needs. I think he does give them flexibility in the offseason as far as the Brunson situation is concerned, but I think they are pretty adamant they want to keep Jalen. So we'll see where that ends up going, but Spencer Dinwiddie, sensational. His role on this team is so invaluable. Now, this wasn't a great Bertans game. He does nothing. Goose egg for him, so he kind of comes back down. Only 4 shots, but even still, this is a really good trade-off here. If you're going to give me part-time KP, who even in that part-time is only then part of that time really on and dynamic, versus what you're getting out of Dinwiddie now, who really seems to be thriving in this new system, new role, and just a fresh start in general. I think that's no question. That's an upgrade, and that makes Dallas a better, more dangerous team, especially in the playoffs. I think Dinwiddie is the penultimate X factor for Dallas. We know what Luka's going to do. Dinwiddie is going to be the second most important, I would say. You might look at that and say, well, Jalen's been your second best player all year. I'm still telling you, I think it's Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie is going to be the crucial X factor that helps them decide whether or not they finally get out of the first round. But let me know. What do you think? Leave a comment below. How do you feel about this game? Do you feel just relieved that they got the win? Are you frustrated that they had a lull again in that after the Warriors game the other night where they had to kind of overcome things despite no Clay, despite no Draymond, had to overcome that, and you kind of feel like Dallas, while they got 2 wins back to back, might not have earned it in the shining kind of firing on all cylinders way you would like to see. To me, a win is a win, and showing grit and overcoming difficulties says more about a team than cruising to victory. But let me know. Let me know your opinion. Leave a like, comment, subscribe to the Dallas Prospect. And until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Peace.